1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern. I am usually your host, Joe Mahaffey, but today I think we're going to have an extra host with a dinosaur in the background.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what that dinosaur. He's a monster. There's a monster. Yeah.
And of course, my other co-host,
James Engelhardt. I'm here hanging out. My son is in the other room, monstering it up. So, yeah,
I love it.
That'll come in and out before he goes to lunch, and then takes a little rest. So
that'll be fine. We're not that kind of podcast that would not accept that.
Excellent.
All right. So, gosh, James,
yes.
I tell you, last time we met, we talked to Frank West.
Yes.
And I've been watching the numbers on the analytics, and it's a very popular episode. We're getting a lot
good
of listens to that. Otherwise, you and I are just listening to it over and over again.
I do. The sound of his voice is soothing.
Yes. You're not using it to go to sleep at night, are you?
Maybe.
I don't know where my camera went, but I'll bring it back. That was weird.
Yeah, there it is. It's the monster in the other room is vexing us. Yeah.
Could be. But but obviously that was then, and this is now, and I have gone ahead and given this episode a title.
Mm-hmm.
It is Mr. Engelhardt Goes to Gen Con.
Yep.
So
there it is.
So I know this is the first time you went. I know Frank gave you really nice advice on things to consider, but I would just sort of love to spend this time today kind of getting your impression of Gen Con.
Sure. I mean, the first thing I want to mention before we dive too deep is Gen Con. Again, record-setting number of people. I think 2,000 people over from last year. So a little over 70. Yeah, I know. Between 74 and 75,000 people. So it was unique visitors. And that's the other thing.
Do you have a sense of what the volume was like or what the trajectory was like before COVID? And is this like a recovery kind of thing?
It is. Yep. They have fully recovered and are moving into brand new territory. So hooray for them. They're expanding to another. There's a new hotel going up like right across the street, which made parking a little weird, but nevertheless worked well. And so that's going to open space for even more exhibit rooms, or at least gathering rooms, and then of course more rooms for attendees. So they are looking to keep expanding Gen Con over there. The recent numbers that I found from a local media outlet was that Gen Con brought in $83.5 million for local businesses, so that's good too. Indy's a great host, and the attendees are really paying that back. So,
well, Indianapolis is a beautiful city. It's very clean, it's
very nice. Yeah,
laid out very well. So, so that doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sorry, I should know this. You drove there. You did not fly. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So, well, I appreciated Frank's hints on how to get through airports. It was not, although that came up a couple of times. People talked about like leaving Gen Con with stacks of cards and like having to explain everything that was happening. Although they did have, and this was fun, the Indy airport apparently had tables set up for gamers, so you could go get there early, break out some games, and play. So that was kind of a nice touch.
So I was thinking that maybe they had it, figured out to the point that maybe they should revamp the way they do security.
Yeah, just let them in. Yeah, come on. Yeah, there's a Kingdom Death minis are themselves a weapon, but yeah. So I did drove in with Sky and met her mom there at Stephen Conway's house, which is where I was staying, and from there went down to the con early on. That was Wednesday.
Okay. Now, just for context, like you were not staying in the middle of Indianapolis. You were staying at a home. How far was the drive? How long was the drive to get in, and traffic and such?
Well, traffic the first 2 days was awful because Gen Con attendees plus locals And then with the construction, various roads were closed off, and so I was in the car with the two locals going, well, no, take that one. What about this one? So there was a lot of like talking through what trips could be and looking at maps and negotiating back and forth. And I was just sat going, I don't know where I am, so I will trust people to make good choices. And they did. The first time we went down there, it was clearly a disaster. The second time we got caught up in something. And then from then they had the pattern down of how to get in. And there was part of the deal with the construction was that it cut off a north-south sort of corridor, right? But the locals, who I was with, knew this little bitty road that looked like it was supposed to be like a walking wall, like cobblestones, that kind of stuff, except it was a road. And so we could cruise down that, turn back north, right at the edge where the construction was, and ta-da, parking. About a block from the convention center. So it was awesome. Yeah, no, I really appreciated, like, I think if I was there on my own, driving my own car around, this would not have been anywhere near that pretty. So that was a nice thing. But the traffic, otherwise, on Saturday, things really cleared out and it was not a problem like getting into town. But we were about 15, 20 minutes out. So not too far, 10, 15, something like that. Yeah. I didn't pay too much attention to the timing, just watching Indianapolis go past the windows.
Okay, so you got through traffic, you got there. So
we got there.
What surprised you the most the moment you walk into Gen Con?
That's an interesting one. I think the thing that was great was that the vibe was there from the beginning, right? It wasn't just like you walked in like, okay, this is going to be a thing going on. Like people were in costumes. It was all about games and game language and all of that, like from the very beginning. And so it was kind of fun. We mentioned this, I had several conversations over the weekend with people who were like, yeah, I don't have to explain anything about what I do. I play games. And everybody's like, cool, which ones? And you're like, oh, yeah, I really love worker placement and a good deck builder. Like, oh, yeah. So you could use all the shorthand that you're used to, which was great. And not having to explain all of that stuff. It was also fun when you would go to you'd go to a booth and someone say, okay, so this is a dice placement game and with a little bit of set collection and recipe fulfillment. You're like, cool. And they didn't even like hesitate to give you these like coded messages. You're like, okay, yeah, and I'm seeing this stuff. Okay, great. Yes, let's run. So, and I think it felt like a large academic conference. I've been to several large ones that have in the 12 to 15,000 people. And on Wednesday, it felt like that. So we wandered around the halls. There were lots of people. There were a couple of very long lines to get T-shirts and such. Stephen and Gubbins were showing me around saying, oh, hey, look for here, and this is there, and this is how we get to the block party. This is how you get to Lucas Oil, all of that kind of stuff. And so that was great. And yeah, and that was...
Well, you talked about that if you said it felt like some of the other events you've done in the publishing industry in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a moment where you were kind of like, okay, this is unlike any convention I've ever attended?
So the next day, Thursday, and we got there, I want to say 10:30ish. So after the running of the nerds, as they call it. So we walked in, and there were just so many more people. So if AWP is 12,000, let's say, and Gen Con is 74, that's 6 times the number of people, right?
Okay.
Plus or minus. And going into those halls, immediately you felt it. Because I'm used to AWP having like 600 or 700 exhibitors, but they're little bitty booths for like MFA programs or for publishers, for little bitty journals, for this and that, right? And people would wander through. It was great. Sometimes it might get a little congested, but you could move through. Here, it was just like inch, and you were just kind of moving slowly. And the vibe was, the only other times I've been in those have been at like music festivals. And people are usually like, hey, you can smell things in the air that make people feel a little more mellow, and everybody's just like, cool, got my beer, just moving along. So there was no beering, at 10:30 in the morning that I'm aware of. I'm sure somebody was. Hooray for them. But
Probably over at Paverson Games with Distilled.
yeah, or Looney Labs doing whatever they do. And so we were moving slowly, and that was like, okay, this is weird. Just so everybody just, barely inching, like, okay. But everybody was polite. They were really kind to each other. And I think that, I look at social media and there were plenty of instances of people not being kind to each other. But it felt like the vast majority of it was people just saying, hey, we're here for this good time, for this weird niche thing that we all pursue. And let's just, be good and be kind. When we first walked in, near the Stonemeyer booth, which was quite big, and they had I'm looking at your picture over there. So they had Duel of Melloc, and they had and they've got Wingspan Pockets over here too. Yep, and people were just throwing money at them. Basically, it was pretty fantastic.
Did you get a chance to speak to Jamie?
Did not see him.
Okay.
He had a lot of booth staff, and the booth was large enough that there was an inner room that was sort of built there where people staffed stuff. Yep. And I think he was having meetings and so on. So
100%. I mean, I can imagine having, I've gone to shows like large computer-based shows.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we used to call it CES, or I guess it is still called CES, but we also had one called Infocom back in the day that I think has kind of come into that. But you would come to these things, and these booths would have extremely high production values, and they would change from year to year. So I'm just sort of imagining that when you were describing the Stonemeyer booth.
Yep. Stonemeyer, North Star, Asmodee, Hasbro had a guerrilla footprint sort of in the middle of things. They had this fun dexterity game, the ring game where you've got a ring and you kind of sling it on a wooden arm, and you're trying to hook it on a little hook. Yep.
Yeah.
So they have a new version of this that has sort of little arms poking out all the way up and down a central tower, and you're sliding it around, and so it's wrapping around and trying to catch something there. So they had about, I don't know, 10 of those set out, and people were throwing rings at each other. And so there were the other ones that were really big. There were a couple of other restoration games and so on, right? But the other ones with big footprints were the game table companies. There were 5 or 6 of those, it seemed like, and they just had tables. And you go over, hang out, and see what all the tables were like with their many different things. Yeah.
Berkey there, Game Toppers.
Don't remember.
Okay. Yeah. No worries.
Yep.
Just curious.
Asmodee was huge. So the other thing is that the hall, the sort of there was the exhibits hall, and then there was another demo hall, and these were both, you've been to big shows, what this kind of space is like, and it was funny because you could go to the booth and they would show you, like, here is this trick-taking game with worker placement element. Let's just grab words out of the sky. But if you want to play the whole thing, go over to the demo hall. We've got a table over there.
Got it.
And then you could sit down and play, and they have people there teaching you the things.
Well, while we're on the topic of booths, was there a booth that just made you stop in your tracks and you were like, I got to go over here?
Not particularly, just because I kind of, there was nothing that was like, oh my, like there's a live dragon or something, right?
Right.
There were,
I would have been.
There was
a live dragon.
Yeah, out in the dealer's hall, they had at the demo hall rather, they had a couple of like big demo areas, and there was a DC one that had a big sort of half circle coming out of there. Was a life-size Batman, I guess. What other else? Instead of a miniature, so the life-size Batman kind of thing. And there were a couple of fun sculptures like that around. There was a large version of Robo Rally with actual robots. That was fun. robots probably about the size of a Roomba,
Mhm.
but much more amusing looking. And then you would actually program. They had a bunch of laptops up, and you could program your moves, and then they would actually do the thing. And yeah, that was pretty fun. But a lot of it was just, oh, there's Andy Looney in the Looney Labs booth. Oh, that okay, cool. Um, Let me introduce you to Dominic Krapachetz. Cool, right? And so there was that kind of stuff that felt more. Um, it was more interesting to me than like they had a big dragon or some other sort of splashy thing.
Right. Well, so let's talk about that because you were obviously there with some industry insiders.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get to meet anybody that was sort of on your bucket list of people in the industry to meet?
Well, I mean, I'd never thought to go like, oh yeah, I should make sure that I meet, so and so and so and so. But I did have a great time with my conversation with Dominic, again from Krabachet from North Star Games. And he's like, okay, here's stuff that we've got coming up for the next 2 years from North Star, and here's this game that I have that's going to be probably Q3 27, and here's a pretty early, sort of a mid prototype. Everything was still just like paper and yeah,
Mm.
cubes from other games kind of thing. And so that was, and he's like, let me get your idea about if we're going to redo Wits and Wagers, what should we look like? What should the price point be? What do you think? And so that was a really fun conversation, just bouncing ideas. And he was just like, talk to me. The
So
other
you need
fun,
to invite him on the show.
yeah, oh, I should. But one of the other funny things talking with him, and we've been talking for a while, and you know me, Joe, and so I, drop an F bomb, and he looks at me, and he turns to Steven and Gubbins, and he's like, "This guy. I mean, my people tell me not to use this, but this guy comes in here," and I'm like, "Oh," he's like, "No worries. I was a fishing captain. We can use every." And so then after that, the whole the vocabulary changed quite quickly. It was pretty funny.
James, you're in Indianapolis,
I know.
a clean and peaceful city.
I'm in Greenville, It's
You can't be dropping F-bombs in the middle of Indianapolis. What the hey?
oh my goodness, yeah. So that was fun, and just yeah. And the other thing that struck me was so we've got the games booths, right? All the games, and you're looking like, oh hey, I wasn't expecting to see this, but here it is, hooray! And but the dealer hall had two sections that were devoted to one was like entrepreneurs and one was art, and I kept calling it the just like you just the shoved toward the back of things. It was kind of fun. I was like, oh, so the entrepreneurs were kind of single game companies like I've got this one thing, or some of the tables were there. We also met a couple of people who were represented manufacturing companies. Like here's a Chinese company, here's a one from down the road in the Midwest. So I don't think Panda was there, but there were a couple of others.
Right.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And then there was also an art section where there were a lot of indie publishers and self-publishing and art, and then clothes, hats, leather goods, all that kind of stuff. And the thing that struck me there was that I kind of think about it this way, that like you go to your local con, your local Ren Fair, right? Then it's like 40, 50 people, or the Ren Fair's got maybe a couple thousand, and it's like, yay, people are putting stuff up, and there's a lot of like crocheted, Cthulhu's and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the very best of those people go to the more like the permanent Ren Fair in Charlotte or Atlanta, right? And they're all summer, and they've got nicer stuff. And then the best of those go to the big like regional cons, and then the best of those go to the low key national ones, like Geekway, right, or BGG or whatever. There's other ones, right? San Diego or whatever. And then the best of those all make it to Gen Con. And so it's fabulous stuff. It's priced, in accordance with that, but really amazing stuff. Like if you want a full-on leather duster, and they will, in your size, they will do that. And I mean, these like fantastic leather steampunk hats with goggles sewn to them and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, yep,
Right.
that was 300. That'll set you back $350, but
How
yeah.
many of those did you buy?
Oh, I got 4. No.
That's on brand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was just amazing to actually, it was kind of fun to walk past those sections because it all smelled very leathery. And so that's always, that's a nice smell in the middle of a con with lots of people and food and breathing. And you go, oh, leather. Nice. Yeah.
So it's an interesting contrast, because when I think about, Mythicon, which of course is nowhere near the
Mhm.
scale of Gen Con,
Indeed.
but, obviously this is a con where it's really more the industry coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the players are there and the fans are there, et cetera, but this is really an industry show. Whereas, most of the cons that we've seen locally, or I've seen locally, probably better to say, are more people playing games than demoing games. There's a few of those, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing like on the scale that you just described. I am curious though about the gameplay that was going on. Did they have like rooms or big rooms, like when you could just go, hey, there's a game over here, you sit down and you play? Or was it more like Vegas, like I gotta wait for a spot at that table and
Wait for the croupier to do it. Just
Yeah.
as an excuse to say the word croupier. Yeah.
There you go.
So it is column A and column B. There's a lot of yes, the industry people meeting each other, talking about the business. But I think the bigger con for that is actually Gamma, which is very much just business people, and there's very less, yeah. But here, I mean, they were there and there are people, I ran into, and this was the other funny thing. You'd run into these like, oh, Rodney Smith. I watch your videos all the time. he's taller than I expected. So is Tom Vassell, for that matter. And so, like, you'd see those people, and you'd see them, like, the media going around to other, going to booths and saying, "Hey, here's what we're doing for next season," or something like that. You could kind of hear the pitches, and people were talking. They're like, "Okay." So there was bit of that going on, and I was there with the Spiel Foundation, and so that was a lot of the meetings that I had too, was just hanging around with Stephen and Gubbins and going to these different. Also, just as a quick aside, Gubbins is a dedicated listener, so hey, dude, great to hang out with you for 4 days, and I hope to see you again.
Love
Yeah,
that.
and so there's so much gaming. I mean, it's just everywhere. So there's the demo room, which is again the size of one of those big exhibit hall floors, right? And there's, I don't know, several hundred tables there, and they've got the dedicated, like, this is the blue orange table, this is the yellow table, this is the whichever. I'll go on and on and on and on and on. And you sit down, and someone says, "Hey, I will teach you Bunny Kingdom Town." Great. And so
never get my wife away from that table. Keep going.
it's a good one too. I like it. But so there's a whole lot of that. And then all of the floor, the playing field of Lucas Oil Stadium is just open gaming. So you bring your I think some of the sections were like, we're going to have a tournament for this game, and this section is sort of ripped off, but it's a football field. So
Now,
there's a whole lot of space for people.
It's enclosed, right? It has a ceiling. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'd never been there, so.
Yep. I touched the playing surface because they had the square that they had left open, so you could go and like, it's a mega dexterity game, right? So tens of thousands of people who come to watch out.
It's the inspiration for Blood Bowl.
Exactly.
So there you go.
The Indianapolis Colts right there.
So you said you casually ran into, or you mentioned Rodney and Smith and Tom. Did you get to interact with them at all?
Not Rodney had handlers. It was pretty funny. There were a couple of people who were like, "Hey, we're going this way," and I saw Vassal, and he didn't. I mean, he was just wandering around. But I mean, it's the hat and the colorful shirts kind of stuff, and it's like, "Oh yeah, it's Tom Vassal. Hey, dude." I didn't feel any need to talk to Tom Vassal.
Sure.
Let's see. So and then all the colors of the meeple folk were there. There was a bunch of folks, actually. You just sort of bounce around the corner and go like, "Oh, hey, look, here you are. You've jumped off of my laptop screen, and now I'm talking to you." So I'm trying to think of any. I mean, I know they were just sort of all around again, and there were like close to 75,000 people there. Things disappeared into the corners. Let's
Out of curiosity,
anybody else? Yeah.
were Felicia Day and Will Wheaton there because they've got that new show coming on Conludo?
Yeah, and they were supposed to be. I didn't see them. I did run into Stephen Bonacore and Jeff Engelstein, which was Stephen Bonacore was dressed as Frodo, or maybe Bilbo, and Jeff was dressed as Gandalf. So we're walking through one of the corridors, going to a different meeting, and Jeff Engelstein says, "Stephen," but he's got the giant hat almost like down to his eyes, and then he's got the white beard stuff like up to his nose, so you really could not see who this was. You're just like, the hell is this? Yeah. But we did get a chance to say hey to Stephen and Jeff, but just like very quickly as they were going off to, they have their new game out, so they were dressed up for it and doing fun stuff. So,
Got it.
yeah.
So
well, I'm gonna go back to the open gaming thing because
yeah.
There's Lucas Oil Stadium, there's the demo hall, and anywhere you went around there, like in the lobbies of hotels, we had somebody teach us the Wingspan Pocket just at a high table at a coffee area in a hotel. They had they just bought it, open it up, and I think this is part of the charm of Gen Con, right? You buy the game you always wanted or that you've been looking at a lot, open it up, and just start playing. So like, oh yeah, here's how this is all happening. This is like, oh okay, cool. And then so that was, and maybe that's one hotel away. And there's little like all those conference rooms that you see in hotels, right? The little breakout rooms. It's 20 feet people or so. Those are all booked for games as well. And then we get to 2 hotels away, the JW Marriott, not just the Marriott, the JW. You go to the JW.
That's the fancier one.
And there's a giant ballroom with 5, like all of Mythicon in this room just playing. And we're now 2 hotels away.
Right.
We've passed thousands of people playing games. We left Lucas Oil Stadium and the demo hall, and there's still 500 people in a room. And it felt more like a sort of regional, large regional con where it's like, here's the little flag that says, we would like another player, or, I have this game and I would like to teach it kind of thing. So that's sort of set up. So yeah, gaming. Yeah. So much open gaming. Yeah. It was very much the vibe and you could do so many different things too. So you might be into tabletop games. That's great. You might not have a chance to play Kingdom Death. So here you're going to sit down and play Kingdom Death or Wonderland's War or Twilight Struggle or Twilight Imperium, many other Twilight games. And so it's just there to do. And people are just like, yeah, let's do this. Or you could find yourself in an RPG section and you're just going to spend 4 days playing maybe the same RPG, a really deep dive one, or just a bunch of little bitty ones, and so you like Gen Con feels like the parable of the blind man and the elephant, right? Where your Gen Con will be very different. Like it's not like you go to AWP, you go to some other conference, and you're like, okay, I might tailor things a little bit here or there. Here, just entirely different experiences. You'd spend your whole time playing True Dungeon. That'll set you back a change. But yeah. And people do. And they dress up and they just like, I'm in for True Dungeon, and poof.
That's the only reason I'm here.
Don't see him again for 4 days. It's fine.
Wow. Well, I mean, when you've got that kind of scale, 75,000 people, which is typically, think about that. That's typically a collegiate or NFL football stadium volume, right? And everybody has, this to be such a cohesive hobby. There's a lot of segments to this hobby, that you've called out some of that: worker placement, the D&D stuff, or the tabletop role-playing game is probably the better way to say it. And then of course there's the Magic the Gathering class game. I'm sure there are many others. I would imagine that there was probably a whole area segmented just for that.
There were so many booths of card resellers,
Mm-hmm.
and they were big booths, and they're like, "Yep." So they had different card games, but Magic was definitely front and center, and big displays of like, "Here's this card, you want to," and it's running from like, "Here's $1 for this pack of something in brown paper," to "Here's $350 for this one card," right? So, and there were at least 4 or 5 of those as well. And I was like, wow. And always thronged. Like people were around this the whole time. And I thought, well, that is not my experience of this hobby, but man, yeah.
Well, it's funny. I ran into somebody yesterday at the grocery store who was wearing a Twitch shirt, and we were kind of talking about it, and he was explaining to me in front of his wife that he has recently taken up Magic the Gathering, and I looked at her and I said, "I'm sorry."
Oh no.
There is a 12-step program for him out there somewhere. No, they were a very nice couple. Enjoyed
Lovely.
talking to them. But so you spent much of your time, or at least some of your time, on the industry side instead of just playing games. And I'm just kind of curious, what did that look like to kind of pull back the curtain and take a look from that perspective? Because I don't know if everybody that goes to Gen Con kind of gets that lens on things if they're just going there as a fan of games. So talk about that.
Well, yeah, it was really interesting. Well, one thing that was really funny was hanging out with industry people, with game designers and publishers. Was pretty much anytime like something. So you would say, like Laura and I were both writers, and we'll say something kind of funny or hear something kind of funny, and go, "Oh, that's a great title for a book or a poem or a short story or an album or a band or whatever," right?
Sure.
For this group, it's always games. Ah, that's a good title for a game. Or, ooh, hey, we're standing in line trying to get these things. I wonder if there was a way that we could take this and turn it into a game, because then you're moving people along this thing, and like it was constantly, that was just the default kind of engagement with the world was, how does this, could I use this to, what about this game, could it be part of like, and so that was really fun. The other is, I mean, and if you've done project management, this makes perfect sense, but they're thinking 2, 3, 5 years out, right? It's not like, the games that you're looking at now, they stopped working on 3 years ago. But now they're here at the con and you're like, oh shit, right, we have to teach size wise or whatever, right? This is what happens when again, Laura and I do reading. It's like, oh, I left all of these poems by the side of the road 2 years ago, and now I'm here, talking about them, right? So there's a lot of that, and just how much, like, again, talking with Dominic, like, I'm just interested in what ideas people have. Like, tell me more stuff, because I'm like, I have this idea. How do you think that sounds? And just the kind of way that everything gets workshopped pretty intensely. So we were playing this prototype that he had, kind of a space game, and he was like, okay, is this there, you can put it here and you'll get this thing, and you'll get a 1 or a 2 or a 3. And we saw one card that had a 1 scratched out and a 2, and he's like, yeah. I said, oh, I see you haven't quite figured this out. He's like, yeah. I don't think 2 is right either. I said, well, 1.5 is weird. He was like, yeah, no, it can't, yeah. Can't be 1.5. But so that was really interesting, just how fluid all of this stuff is. When I'm seeing and hearing publishers and designers talking about, like, oh, yeah, that survived, or yeah, that wasn't, that rule that everybody's tripping over in the rule book was supposed to come out, it wasn't supposed to be there, and now we're like, I can see how that happens. And also the margins are not great,
Sure. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and
I don't think people get into this to get rich.
No.
But with that as a backdrop, though, and kind of the people that you were around, was there one conversation that you wished every aspiring designer or publisher could have overheard?
I mean, I'm going to go back to Dominic again, just because it was so open, and his passion for it was really strong. So he was telling a story about his parents live in France, Grapouchette, is not a
Hello.
particularly yeah, not a particularly English name, right?
Right.
And they're getting elderly, and they like to play games.
Hey, that's
Elderly,
a name for a game. Olderly.
elderly.
That'd be a
Yeah,
great name for a game.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Exactly so.
Trying to get into that. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah. So he's like, I want to have games that I publish that I can play with my parents. And so, yeah. And just the ways that you can be very commercial at these things, right? I want to have games that are very narrowly focused. This is what they do, and this is what I do. Perfect. But there are also just these passions that can come up. And I think paying attention to those and listening to sort of him talk about this, like develop like a new line of games based entirely on this experience and this kind of passion, was really the like he. I would imagine, they're expecting some commercial success out of this, but also just pursuing it because it's a vision. I think was a really nice experience, a really good conversation, and not just good to hear and learn. And also, I mean, a lot of people want to give back, right? So Conway runs the Spiel Foundation, which is a charity that puts together game bundles and sends them to boys and girls clubs, children's hospitals, retirement communities, different groups, all kinds of different groups. And watching people like within the first 30 seconds, there's like, yes, how can I participate in that? I mean, and there are good business and tax reasons to do this as well, but also just no, we want the games in these people's hands because people should have games and have good games, right? You don't want, your 86-year-old grandmother being forced to play Life again.
That's fair. That's
fair. So that was really just a sort of fantastic take on and again, I mean, if I were going around with somebody else, would I have different conversations? Absolutely. But it was great to be part of this kind of nonprofit work and meeting people and talking about generosity. And that was just a fantastic experience.
Well, we'll have to talk offline about that because we've got that. My ham club has that event coming up at Levine Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that offline because we're going to stay on topic with Gen Con here. But I'm throwing that out there just in case the Spiel Foundation is listening. It will not be a surprise.
Yeah.
No, but I think so. Having experienced this from different lenses, as a player, as seeing the industry sort of behind the curtain, so to speak, and then of course the whole lens on the nonprofit. Did it come away with? Did it change your perspective on the hobby at all? Did it give you a different feel for just being in this hobby? I'm just curious if it changed your perspective, I guess is really the question that I'm trying to ask.
So years ago when I was working at Prairie Schooner, I was the managing editor there, and authors would call up, and they would say, hey, could I speak to James Engelhardt? It's like, that's me. I'm like, what? You're answering your phone? Yeah, there's just two of us, like me and Hilda, that's it, and so getting a sense of how small these companies are, like they might sound like a great deal of success and they're very successful companies, but for this field, success can be just a small group of 4 or 5 people or even fewer, right? And so walking into these booths and saying, oh wow, it's there's Andy Looney selling people, teaching people how to play Flux, right? And you're like, oh, that's just how small this is. And also I think how passionate the makers and publishers are about this was also just really lovely. Like to see, again, these people who are running these companies working and sometimes they weren't necessarily as hands-on as Andy Looney, right? But they would be there to meet people, to talk to people. And if you didn't know it was, Andy Looney, if you didn't know it was Dominic Krapuschetz, if you didn't know it was, I met a guy, Ian, whose last name escapes me. His game is coming out from Captain Games, and he was the guy leading at the booth. It was they are distributed through Asmodee. So he's at the Asmodee booth. He's got a little table that's for his game. He's like, here's how you play this game. And it's just, I think that kind of accessibility was really fun and really great to see. And like, hey, we can just, I mean, you hear these stories and then you see and go, oh yeah, no, that actually is entirely like that. They're just going to be there walking you through their games and with their passion, with their love for the game and for the whole industry. That was pretty exciting.
Well, that's for me, just to kind of hear it and see it through your words, so to speak. It sounds like it was very intriguing. But now that you've experienced it, number one, would you go back? And number two, what would you do differently?
So, oh yes, in a heartbeat. I think part of it is the sort of larger community around you as well, because you're thinking, I mean, people in these, amazing costumes and just sort of being their most out there self, which was super fun. Just nobody's, you're dressed as fill in the blank, some anime character, or there were a lot of Dungeon Crawler Carls or Gandalfs. There were two different Thors, one the Marvel Thor, one the Norse Thor, and people are just like, that looks great. And it's the same kind of thing you generally get at a run fair, right? But just like all of us there from all across the country with all different, yeah. So definitely going back, yeah, would be a thing I would like to do. What would I do differently? I don't know. I think it would be fun to actually like do the demos more. That was kind of like, oh yeah, or go BGG had the hot games room and maybe go up there and see what's going on. Participate a little bit more on that sort of gamer side of it. On the other hand, I wouldn't mind going back and meeting all the people again too.
Yeah.
Those are really great conversations.
Well, we talked about some of the people that you met either in the meetings that you were at or the different
Mhm.
booths. But did you just have any like random encounters with other gamers and you had a conversation and you made a connection, not in a creepy way, just a connection like, hey,
Well, I mean, so my first day on Thursday, I went in my newly purchased seersucker suit. And I got a lot of folks just wandering up and going, love the suit. That's fantastic. So I think and then I had a,
were
it
you
was a
channeling
game,
Tennessee Williams or what were you doing?
I was just looking, like, I looked a little different. And then I had a Game Pieces T-shirt on underneath it, and people would like, oh, hey, wait, is that and that? And so we had, like, oh, look, just the pieces kind of game itself going on. So that was fabulous. And just like that was the kind of thing that you would expect to happen, right? People just wander up and if you had a costume of any sort, mine was just like, a fancy Southern suit and they had things to say. So that was great. The other thing that like, I don't know, the guys who were walking past like, oh, is that Wingspan Pocket? Like, yeah, hey, come over here. We'll show you how it works. And I think that kind of, then the guys at the yellow booth, that was fun, because, or the demo table, as people were playing Bunny Kingdom Towns and just like walking you through and going, oh, watch this and this, okay. And you can just hover and they're cool, yeah, and you can ask questions, and then checking out at the yellow booth with a copy of Bunny Kingdom Town, which also had a $5 upgrade pack, so you could grab that and grab the like geek up a bit kind of things. So that was fun. But then they are of Girls from France, and talking to them briefly in French, they were just like, "Oh my god, yeah."
So let's talk about that. Obviously this was an expense.
Mm-hmm.
Travel there and the ticket and
Mm-hmm.
meal stuff. All that's we'll just call that table stakes. How much
Yes.
lighter was your wallet because of the things that you purchased at Gen Con.
Well,
You don't want to put that in financial terms. You could just maybe tell us some of the things you bought.
yeah. So one of the things that they've got is an auction and a consignment room. And again, it's a big ballroom space. And the auction, people just donate stuff to the auction, and then people also hook up with the consignment room, so you can get all kinds of different stuff. The auction was, some of it tended to be pretty cheap, like $5 and $10 a pop. There was something that it was connected to Gygax, and I think that went up for like 400. Everybody applauded afterwards. Yay! And so the consignment shop had, like, if there were gaps in your collection from 3 to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 20, like on a deep cut, that would be the place to go. The first time we walked past it, it had, the human corral thing going about 4 lanes deep. And then I picked up a 3M game there. So from back in the probably early 70s, I'm guessing, is the Thinking Man's Football. So I found that. Yeah. Stephen, someone else had pointed out to Conway, and he was like, "Hey, James, do you see?" Oh. So I went back and picked that up. So that was good. And then, yeah, I've got some fun stuff over here. Let's see. Oh, I bought Pandasaurus games. So now I have the Pandasaurus tote, which I'm very excited by. I just dropped. I think it was just a little game too that I got. Oh, no, maybe not. It was Greyloon, which is not so little a game, actually, back there, which is a remake of Spirium, which is a game that I had thought about a lot in the past, and it went out of print, but now it is back. William Attia, who designed Kalos, has brought this. Orloi, which is about, let me see if I'm trying to do this like in the screen. I'm losing control. There we go. All right. So Orloi, which is just a beautiful looking game about the central clock in Prague. So that's fun. Forest Shuffle, Smoky Mountains. We've been big fans of Forest Shuffle. Smoky Mountains is a 20-minute drive from here, so felt like that needed to happen.
Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah. Pirates of the High Teas, which you're a pirate, and you're competing to serve your pirate captain the best tea, and crumpets and all of that kind of stuff. So that looks pretty fun. And very silly. And I keep telling anybody who will listen that the next one needs to be Pirates of the High Teas with an E at the end, and it's all about pirate hairstyles. The B-52 kind of look is what we're looking for, right? Yeah. Let's see here. And Bunny Kingdom Town and Wingspan Pocket we have chatted about.
Yes.
Inkwell, there's this DVC Games that does that sized box. Like, they're all little bitty boxes with the magnetic snap on it. So that's kind of fun. But that is about illuminated manuscripts in the island of Iona in Ireland, like the 11th century, 12th century, that kind of stuff. So the Book of Kells, right? And you've got it's kind of recipe fulfillment and drafting. So you're drafting these different colors to put on your manuscripts. I think of it as sort of Azul Plus, where it's sort of similar. You're grabbing stuff and putting them on patterns on your board, but with a couple more challenges sort of rolled in. So that was fun. And that game company, it was a student who discovered one of their games for an assignment in my class and said, "Look at this." And I was like, "Well, who is DVC Games?" And they have all kinds of good stuff. They also have a game that I picked up called Rosetta, which is about developing a language. So you're trying to communicate, and you got a little dry erase boards, and you're writing symbols back and forth to each other to figure communicate.
It's very cool.
It's very cool. Little bitty boxes. Yeah.
Love it. Anything out of this experience that will influence the next time you do your May X?
Rosetta. I definitely got the Rosetta game for them. And there are Central Michigan University Press was there. They do more academically driven games. They have one on the hydrologic cycle. Okay. They have one called Rising Waters, also I guess part of the hydrologic cycle, but it's based on Mississippi floods in the 1920s, the fall of 26, spring of 27, that really kind of devastated an African American community that was living in that river valley. And so, I mean, so these are the kinds of games that they do, right? And they've got one about how religions develop. So I will be getting Furman to buy that one for me. I was like, wait a minute, I can if I'm going to get this for my MAX, let's do that.
Well, did you
But
make
also,
any connections that? Oh, sorry. Finish your thought.
yeah, and they also had a couple of they were there. They were also repping MIT, or maybe MIT Press was on the other side. Regardless, there were a couple of other books. I'm like, I need to buy these for the essays that are included. So there was a bunch of that, and I think also just telling students that it is kind of a small world in terms of games. Like, again, you can wander up to the Looney Labs table and just start chatting with Andy Looney. He's just going to be there, right? And how small that kind of space is. And also, I'll be able to tell them that there's weird shit out there, like scented dice. There was a table. There were lots of tables with dice, and the scented dice table. They had a lot of people at that booth, and I was like, okay, this feels like all right, yeah. So, yeah, I think those would be the things. Finding some more challenging and interesting games for the students that kind of make them think about what games can possibly do, and not just. I mean, they're all fun and games, right? It's awesome, but there's also things that it can make you think and engage, and so that I'm looking forward to bringing to them.
Did you make any connections that are aware of what you do with MAX and might be good networking opportunities for you?
Yep. In particular, there was another nonprofit out of Seattle, and they were very interested in the academic side of things too. They were leaving Gen Con. Gen Con ends on Sunday. On Wednesday, the Serious Play conference started in at Duke, and it travels around. But it's at Duke.
Wow.
Durham. So they were up there. So meeting up and talking with that, and showing them the book cover a lot. Like, oh, okay, cool. So,
congratulations,
yeah.
by the way.
Thank you.
I've
But that was yeah.
From Laura.
Yep. And the funny thing about the book is, usually I'm at like academic conferences and I have to explain games. The poetry they're cool with.
Yeah.
Here, they're like, games, got it. Poetry?
Yeah.
Wow, I don't meet somebody who does poetry. Yeah. So that was kind of fun. There's kind of a funny flipping of the script there, but yeah.
And as long as you found something that rhymes with meeple,
right?
no.
Because that's what you always have to do.
Exactly.
I have to find rhymes for scented dice now. Is what I realized.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know we're coming up on time, so I don't want to cut you off. But is there any last comment or perspective on Gen Con you want to just make sure that you got out in this particular episode?
It's such a wild and fun community. So much people expressing themselves in their cosplay and just geeky shirts. It was always weird if you saw somebody with like khakis and a button down. You're like, where did they wander in from? And that's kind of right. It's kind of a funny moment where you're like, oh, yeah, the dentists are meeting, I guess, at the next, yeah. So that was really the funniest. Was like, oh no, we're just here to let our freak flags fly, right? And just the way then that the community of Indianapolis has embraced that. I mean, we generally parked near a kind of a sports bar. And so they had, all the big screen TVs, even outside or very close to outside, right? And when we were there, they were running like live plays and like game tournaments, and like, so they had their baseball going on, but then also the guy with the books and dice and rolling and stuff. So that was super fun. And like fun t-shirts, the I'm not procrastinating, I'm doing side quests. That was great. The Dad DeLorean. And again, everybody's just like, got it. That's awesome. And again, you don't have to explain it. People just laugh. So, and I think that energy, that sense of community was really, really fantastic to experience and to hang out with for 4 days.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was an amazingly rewarding experience. It sounds
Indeed.
like it is an event that you will take with you, and it sounds like it's an event you'll go back to. And obviously, I've got to figure out how to get it on the docket for next year. I think we have to start planning for it now.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. Yeah.
All of that, but I think it's definitely something that I would like to experience for sure. Well, very cool.
There will be more hotel space next year. So yeah,
there will be. I'll have to think through that because I kind of like the idea of. I mean, I know you stayed with friends, but I kind of like the idea of an Airbnb, than a hotel, just because it makes it easier to go and come and go on your own time and schedule, etc.
It does. Anyway, it's true.
Just a thought. Just a thought. Well, we will be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. It may drop a day or two later. Just because, well, if you were here on the last episode, there was a spoiler alert. So I'm going to make you go back to that episode to figure out what the spoiler alert would be. But we might just be a day or two later putting out our next episode. But we will be putting out on schedule every 2 weeks. Now that the lazy podcaster in me has been cured by the wonderful folks at Riverside .fm, I can just click publish. Love it. Makes my life so much easier. Doesn't mean that there aren't defects in the audio quality from time to time, and it doesn't mean that the transcripts are not are perfect and all that stuff. But you know what? This is all about the publication, we're not doing this for any other reason than we love the hobby.
Exactly.
So with that, I am Joe Mahaffey, and I am not bored. I am board gaming.
And I'm James Engelhardt, and I hope that all your tiebreakers break your way.
We'll see you in a few weeks, folks.
And bye.
In a world of cardboard.